Hi, everyone. I am Violette, Ayala, the founder of FemCity, and we're a little giggly because in the green room, as we were preparing, Ariel and Emilah started sharing already good stuff. And I was like, no, zip it. We got to wait until we get live to share this good stuff. So that's why we're giggling. I was like, no, we're going to wait. I'm so excited to hop on and join you all today. We are going to discuss our theme for the month of August, which is how to know your worth. And I think that this is such a great conversation to have. We can never talk about this enough. I've asked two of our FemCity experts from our founder circle to join us today, Ariel and Emilah. Both actually I've gotten a chance to get to know over the last couple of years, and they're both amazing. But they were sharing that it's Emilah's birthday today, and it was Ariel's birthday yesterday. And then Ariel, you were mentioning it's also
today is my rebirth day, which ties a lot into this topic of discussion. So I actually celebrate August 8th as my second birthday.
I love that. I love that. So let's go ahead and dive in. For those that are watching live, because I can see some starting to log on, if you're watching us live, feel free to ask questions. We're here for you. Collectively, we want to see you thrive and succeed. We are always cheering you on. So if you have any questions, post them there. If you're watching the replay this weekend, a month from now, you can always reach out to our FemCity experts. We're here to help you. We really do get so happy when we see you succeeding and stepping into your greatness. So always know that we are here for you. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Ariel, just share a little bit about yourself. You are a health and fitness coach. But for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yes. So health and fitness is the space that I'm in. My tagline is becoming lighter and helping women become lighter in all ways. More specifically, I help women that deal with any kind of metabolic imbalances. So that could be high blood pressure, diabetes, hypothyroidism, resistance to losing weight. So all of those fall in the same umbrella of how we can help and get them to become lighter.
Awesome. And you mean also lighter, like the stress is off their shoulders, like just lighter beings in this world, and
yes, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it's all connected.
Exactly. Love that. And Emilah and I got a chance to hang out this weekend. It was so much fun. She came down for our founder circle retreat, and Emilah, it was just so wonderful to get a chance to hug you in real life and see all of you guys together. It was just so wonderful. But share a little bit as well about who you are.
Sure. So it was fantastic to be in Miami and see all of you. And I'm a midwife to the soul. I support women in really facing that question that they are afraid to know the answer to. Like, what do you know that you don't, either you wish you didn't know or you're pretending you didn't know? Because your soul is speaking through the answer to that question. And if you know, you're going to need to make some changes. And I work with them to move from stuckness to flow, from fear to flow, from confusion to clarity, and to stop avoiding what they know.
Yeah.
And I do that through intuitive readings and coaching and energy healing. And I've been doing it for 17 years. I've been in this business a long time, and I just adore working with women, entrepreneurs in particular, but women in general, to really do what Ariel does, help make them lighter. You're right. It's all the same, emotionally lighter.
Awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're talking about self-worth today. And the reason why I love this theme is because if we don't connect with our self-worth, we will always be devaluing ourselves and also not advocating for our greatness. And I think that's where, women, if we struggle with self-worthiness, where we're not asking for the deal, we're not taking the chances, we're not asking for more money, we're not expecting more from relationships, we are settling for less. So there are so many connections that we have when it comes to self-worth. And if it's not on par with who we are, which we're all amazing and great, it can really hold us back from such greatness that we have in this world and the way that we serve. So my question to you, let's start with Ariel. How do you determine your worth? Because that might be the first question a lot of women have, is that, what does that even mean? And how do I even start to determine what I'm worth so that I can figure out if I need to up level my worthiness or work on the way that I view myself?
Yeah. So my answer is kind of, I'll say ironic in the way that it came through for me. I mentioned that I celebrate today as my rebirth day or second birthday. And 6 years ago today, my whole life blew up. And it was a destructive time of losing everything that I thought that I was in the reality, and came from a divorce and spiritual awakening. But in that moment, I was at a loss of all worthiness, all self-confidence, and just kind of stripping away of a lot of the physical aspects that I identified myself with. So the irony is, in that moment when I felt so low and so lacking confidence and losing self-worth, was really coming back to Emilah, what you said, of tapping into that inner voice. And I realized, regardless of all of those things, I knew my worth inside. So sometimes it takes a stripping away to really know what that worth is.
Yeah. You know, you're reminding me of, I'm going to pull it up. There's a quote that Rev Doc Lisa shared this weekend, and she sent it to me, and it's exactly what you're saying right now. Let me see how fast I can pull it up. And shout out to Rev Doc Lisa. It's a George O'Keeffe quote, and it says, "I have already settled it for myself. So flattery and criticism go down the same drain, and I am quite free." And that, it reminded me so much of our conversation this weekend when we talked about self-worth. That in essence, you have to find that connection within yourself in order for you to then show externally your self-worth. So before you start negotiating for a higher price or elevating your service quotes and, you know, trying to up-level all areas, really looking a little bit further deep inside, healing, recognizing your worth, and then you're able to, then the other pieces come a little bit more freely.
Right. And I'll note that, you know, this was 6 years ago, with stripping away of everything. And after that, I came clear on my worth internally, but I still had to essentially prove it to myself. So I had to put one foot in front of the other, professionally and in my business and in my offer and in my services, and prove, okay, I know this worth, but now I've got to act on it. And now I've got to ask for it. And when I ask for it, am I delivering on that? And it just continuously solidified what I knew to be true on the inside.
Yeah. And I love that you shared the honesty of that story, Ariel, that it took you some time, because I think often women think that it happens overnight. And I've never known someone who can metamorphosize so fast. It definitely takes some time. I have a post coming out on Sunday that I was writing last night, and it was about how long it took me to also dive in and find my self-worth. It was not like, oh, I read this book or I watched this TED Talk and like it's done. It really does take some time, and it can be quite messy as well. So I love that you shared the timeline on that it wasn't a miraculous in 1 hour kind of.
Yeah, show up in my business overnight.
Right, exactly. We have some love that came through from Delilah, who is our FemCity Brownsville president. So thank you so much. Thank you. Insightful information. I love that quote. I know we did too. I think we cried when she mentioned it. I think we were all sort of crying. Let's go to Emilah. So Emilah, let's talk about self-worth. How do you determine your self-worth? Maybe you have a story as well.
I do have a story, and it's very similar to Ariel's. 20-something years ago, I guess, I came to this place where I also was stripped through right down. And for me, it was through relationship. It was about facing some very intense codependency that I was engaged in and had been for my life until that point. And I entered this 12-step program and therapy in order to address that stripping away that had to happen, to know that I was worthy without service or taking care of others or putting other people at the center of my life. And now I work a lot with women who, put themselves on the back burner, right? And are recovering from that. And that's not the only time my self-worth was up for grabs, you might say, right? So first there was that, then there was the car accident that opened up the psychic and intuitive capacities. Then there was my current marriage, right? Where there came turning points. Like, is my self-worth internal, or is it based on the success of my marriage? So I think for me, over 20 years, I've faced multiple moments of that kind of turning point where the roles that I've held for myself were stripped away. And I had to understand what was underneath and let the next step iterate through my life, as Ariel described. So this is the second or third iteration of my business. And each iteration changed because I changed.
Yeah.
Right on the inside. And so that needed to change who I work with, how I work in my own business, and that I even call it a business instead of a practice. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. That was a big shift for me fairly recently. I was in private practice as an intuitive and a coach for a long time. Now I'm in business.
Mm-hmm.
That was a self-worth pivot.
Yeah. Yeah. And counting your receipts also, like I know for myself, I'm listening to the two of you and I find so much of myself in your stories, different variations, but I know that sometimes when I doubt my self-worth, because I think we still do. I think like even if you get to higher and higher levels of your success, I think that there's that moment, that trigger that happens where you start to doubt your self-worth. Maybe you're catching a cold, or maybe you're not feeling your best. And then those narratives start. And for myself, I go back to my resume and like review what I've done and my certifications and my education and just the things I've taken on, the campaigns that I've created, partners at FemCity. And that has helped me to maintain my sense of self-worth, because sometimes it does plummet. Sometimes you do feel like a little bit knocked down. And just counting your receipts, just going back, the two of you shared that, kind of going back and regrouping, and then reminding yourself of like what you've accomplished. Because I know for sure, listen, I was a personal trainer and Pilates instructor for women for 10 years. And then I started FemCity, and we've been doing this for 15 years. I've only worked with women for 25 years. And I will tell you, we believe in ourselves until one little email comes through or one little text comes through. And then all of a sudden, our minds just go, and then all of a sudden we don't have self-worth anymore. We don't believe in ourselves. And we just switch so fast. So it's really important to stay connected and remind yourself, whether it's your resume or your LinkedIn profile, or just reviewing like the press mentions that you have, or the campaigns that you've done, or the client testimonials, whatever you can. Sometimes those will pull you out and remind you of how valuable you are and how just incredibly worthy you are in this world. So I could talk about this all day, obviously.
I can too.
So my dog started barking because I think it hurt Ariel's dog. So then my dog started barking. That's why I muted myself. I was like, okay, they're all in symphony now. They all want to talk.
Luckily, mine didn't, because I have two very large dogs here.
That would have been hilarious. Would have been like, okay, the dogs are taking over.
Let them take over.
Yeah. So, Ariel, final advice that you have for women that are really struggling with their self-worth and find themselves in that place where they really can't get grounded anymore.
Yeah, I'd like to share two things actually that have been really helpful for me along my journey. The first thing is understanding and knowing that there are seasons, personally, professionally, in all areas of our life. So I can look back now and see that there's a season where I might be in developmental stages or learning, and then there might be a season where I'm acting and in flow and coming up with all these creative ideas. And that may not always happen every single day all the time. So seasons is really important along this journey. And then I think the second thing, which I already alluded to, is realizing that I know so many of you listening to this know that worth inside. You have that small, still voice that tells you how much you are capable of and how much you can do. And be patient with yourself and know that putting one foot in front of the other and continuously taking those small steps adds up, because sometimes there is a delay in that feeling, that belief, and what you see on the outside and how it starts to manifest.
Yeah, I love that. Small steps, just small steps, and I love that you mentioned seasons, because then you can give yourself grace and just close out that season and be like, you know what, that was that season. That was that lesson. That's what I needed to go through, and wrapping it up, closing it, and realizing that does not define me. It's just a moment in time. And then you can move on to the next season of rebirth, as you mentioned earlier as well. So love that. Emilah, your final advice?
Yeah, don't confuse service and doing, service especially from a place of sacrifice, or doing and getting things done with self-worth as a proven like is something to prove your worth. That's the external validation we were talking about, right? If we really center the self-worth internally in ourselves, the service and the offerings and the doing comes from a place of generosity and freedom, right? That's what it feels like to be free, is to be able to offer and serve with generosity with ourself at the center of our lives. Not just centered, we all can center ourselves with all kinds of practices, right? But having ourselves at the center of our lives, and then generosity and service flows much more freely than when we connect it to what we accomplish or what we do. That's not to say accomplishment isn't important, but we don't want to get our self-worth from that, right? The self-worth is on the inside. We need to know that the work we're doing matters, that we matter, and take those small steps in our lives to change that orientation. So
I love that.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. It's a journey. And I don't know if you ever get to a place where you were like super steady and never having to think about, your self-worth again. I think that, I see women in their 60s and their 70s still having these conversations. So I don't think it's like when you hit 52, you're solid, you're good. I think that it's always like an evolution. It is a process. It is a journey. It is, there are always things that will kind of like come out and peak out that will, make you doubt yourself and your worth. But I love that we all three shared that it is a journey. It is something that, it's not overnight, and it doesn't end just with one book or one meditation or one mantra. It's something that, it's a beautiful ride because we get to know ourselves more and we get more solid in who we are. Love that.
Absolutely.
All right. Ariel, how can femmes find you to learn more about the work you're doing in this world?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, super simple, Ariel_Griglin.
Awesome. And Emilah, how can femmes find you?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, which is Emilah.com, my first name. And from there, you can find blogs. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can sign up for an exploratory session. We can talk from there. So that's the best place. That's the hub for me. I'm trying to get away from social media. So, yeah.
I love that you were able to get your domain with just your first name. Like, Ariel, like, how cool would it be if we had just had Ariel.com or Violette.com? I didn't even think about that.
Yes. That would be really cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was way back at the very beginning of the .com thing, right?
Sure.
So it was easy to grab it, and there aren't that many Emilahs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. And we will be back next Tuesday for a great conversation about self-worthiness. And I'm wishing you all lots of love. To learn more about FemCity, head over to femcity.com. Bye.
Bye.